Good morning, Greg.
Hey, what's up, Wimp?
How are you?
I'm good, buddy. Just getting ready to head into the gym here and watch some more guys show us their best.
Well, if you had been involved with those ping pong balls, I think I could have helped you pull out the right number.
No comment, but I believe you could.
Tell me one thing. Tell me this. I don't know exactly how to ask it. When you're like Cleveland, you're blowing people out 2 games. Is there a tendency to take the night off? I know you're getting paid. You're not getting paid by the game anymore, as Barry pointed out. Is it hard to get, and I know home and home court, I was big on home court. Talk a little bit about that for me.
Well, first of all, no, I do not think right now. I think during the course of the regular season, I wouldn't say teams take nights off, but like coming from the West Coast back to the East Coast, there are times when just, schedule, flight, jet lag, guys getting a little bit beat up over the course of the year, and you might not play a guy or, give guys rest. But right now, no, I think every team, is maxing out with their guys. So I think the thing to realize about this series, and it's been great to watch, is, you walked away maybe from those first 2 games and said, Toronto's got no shot. Cleveland was so dominant in that series. But if you look at their records on the year, they were almost exact, Toronto and Cleveland. And when Barry, that so much of sports, and I thought this was one of the great things that happened at Alabama, went with you, is that our teams normally played better as the season went along. You shortened practice, you knew what you wanted to do, and mentally, as much as physically prepared teams, to be ready to play. But both of these teams are ready to play. The other thing I'd tell you is, having been in Toronto with our team in the playoffs 2 years ago, it's one of the loudest buildings you've ever been in your life. So the home court advantage in there, that crowd is a hockey crowd. When I say that, if people have been, they are loud, they are into it, they are standing. It is one tough place to win. Cleveland's also a great crowd. There's a number of them in the league, OKC, Golden State. A lot of the teams still playing. Portland's got a great home crowd. But I guess the point is, no, I don't think so. I don't think that Cleveland went in here thinking, hey, you know what, we swamped them. The tendency then is to relax a little bit because, when you have a couple of the guys that Toronto has that can, drop 30 on you on any given night, and a complementary cast that fill roles very well and embrace those roles, now, when you go into that building, you're going to have a heck of a night.
Greg, you guys have a very difficult job, and I know you when you have a system, how you're going to work within the system and you're going to do what you have to do. But let me ask you this, because you guys have to draft on potential so much now because the guys can go out after their first year. Is the NBA and college, do they have it right, or should they maybe change and go to the baseball rule to where you go out right out of high school or you have to stay in college 3 years? I think it would give you guys a little bit better chance to evaluate the kid, let him develop in college, so you guys get a better look. If they're the LeBron James and those guys, they can go right out of high school. Would it make y'all's job, I don't want to say easy, but easier if they went to the baseball rule for NBA?
Yeah, you know what, Barry, that is the ongoing, lifelong NBA question, right? It's one that'll just be talked about through the years, and if, in fact, the commissioner and the players' union ever get together and decide to change that, it'll still be talked about. What is the right time to do it? For us, like to ask me, and Wimp, I don't know how you feel, like I always thought you really don't know what you have. I'd say 90% of the time what a guy's upside or where he's going to be, how you could project him until you're into his sophomore year. Now, there have been some great ones, but there have also been a lot of guys that, like, when I was there, that coached, signed, like Keith Askins and Michael Ansley and Roy Rogers, and those guys just got better gradually. So to answer your question, did you know Antonio McDyess, the freshman, was going to be a stud? Yeah. But many times for us, you want to see these guys play for 2-3 years because you get a gauge on their maturity, you get more of a resume, you get more intel. I mean, think about how we all acted at 18, 19. I mean, so you're making and casting a judgment on kids that even aren't fully developed physically or mentally. And it makes it very, very difficult. For me, personally, I'd be fine, Barry, with what you said. If they waited 3 or came out right from high school, I think there's been some talk of that. There's been some talk of, keeping them 2 years in college. But definitely the longer you have an opportunity to see them, and I also think definitely for most kids, not even so much just the academic piece of it, but the opportunity to grow socially, be exposed, right, grow up, mature, get tutelage, be mentored, makes a huge difference in how ready they are when they come in the league. Like I won't give you names, but we interviewed a kid yesterday. We have workouts going on that has been in college 4 years. And we interviewed one that had been in college 1 year. Can you imagine the difference in those interviews? It's what it is. One has a great concept of life, a feel, what it's going to be like, where his strengths are and weaknesses. The other one, he's still playing fantasy basketball, and it's not his fault.
Yeah.
Greg, it's not his fault.
You're overseas a lot. Is it? And I know nothing, so maybe this is not I think it's a good question. I'm not sure about it. But when you go over there, is the competition such that you have an exact feel on the comparison of who you're going to draft overseas versus who you're going to draft over here?
Yeah, Wimp, that's a hard one. And anybody that tells you that they can understand the transition, and it's not so much because of their talent level, it's the style of play. And the young guys generally overseas do not get the minutes that, like if you're a good freshman here, you play, right? If you're a talented 18-year-old or 19-year-old overseas and you're playing on a good team, you may not even get in the game. So your best bet is to go watch them practice if the club will allow you to come in to watch practice.
That's interesting.
Yep, it is. They do not. It's like the old days here. The coach is the boss. There isn't anybody that says you don't see any lip service being paid to the coach. The coach is coaching them. He is coaching them hard. And you'll have guys that are 24 to 32 that are playing a lot of the minutes. That's just a guess, guesstimate. And those young guys, they're earning their time. They're coming in doing individuals in the morning, and they're coming back for practice in the afternoon, team practice. And you rarely get to see young guys play a lot of minutes. You are going off of, like when they played international competition, you're looking at video of their U20 games, or like, I'll probably go to Turkey this summer to see the U17 because you'll get to see a lot of young talent. And then hopefully follow them through their international competition. Do you occasionally get to see that guy that 18, 19 plays 15 to 20 minutes? Yes, you do. But you also probably don't see that till later in the year. So to answer it, I think style of play makes it a lot harder to figure out because they pass the ball. There's not a lot of isolation over there. Guys backing a guy down, guys catching at the elbow, everybody clearing out. There's not a lot of that. There's a lot of player and ball movement. And,
that's interesting.
And it's fun to watch. I mean, these teams are well coached.
You're sitting there with a very fine player. You don't get to see him play. You don't get to see him play much. It's hard to determine him versus the guys in the States. Ooh,
Listen, I went all the way to Lithuania a year ago to see a kid play, and like 45 minutes before the game, they don't have to turn. They announced that he wouldn't even play that night. So I mean, you don't know what you're getting when you go over, and it's not just us. It's all the NBA teams that were sitting there ready to see him. They just decided that night he wasn't going to play. They weren't going to dress him. So it's a whole nother world, and you got to do it through a lot of sources. You got to have good sources over there. You got to get good background on guys, and you have to see them at the different junior level events to really get a feel.
Greg, I don't know the answer to this. Hopefully you can clear it up. But what is, I know the difference between high school and college. I've recruited high school kids, but you see a lot of guys who are really, really good, even sometimes great college players, but they can't really play in the NBA. What do you guys look for? What is the difference between the college guy and the college game and the NBA game that lets you guys know, hey, this guy's just not going to work in our league? What is the difference between the two games?
Well, there's a lot, but I would say that, believe it or not, because they make it look so easy, the speed of the game,
the
length of the season, the ability of guys to be able to grind through it, which, that's kind of a learned trait over time with most kids. And learning, instead of like the individual defense, sure you want good individual defenders, but the NBA is so scheme-oriented on playing pick and roll, for instance, and how you're going to do it, and your rotations are very different. And there's a number of ways they may do it during a game, and a number of ways they may do it on different guys within a game. So the intellect, the basketball IQ that's required, and nor should college kids have to digest all that. But at this level, that's something that a lot of guys don't make it because they cannot remember. They can't transition what's being shown to them in video sessions, scouting reports, a play that's put in, a shoot-around that day, maybe 2 or 3 of them. And they expect you to go out and run them and execute it, run them with spacing, timing. And I think that's the biggest difference. The other thing is, like, I say this a lot about guys, I'd love to coach them. I don't want to draft them. Because a lot of good college players, what they bring to the table at college isn't necessarily going to transition well to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
In the NBA, unless you're a star, you need a skill. You need something, whether you're a very good shooter, can really rebound, a guy that can break defenses down and really create consistently. But you got to bring something like that to the game. Just being an all-around good player doesn't necessarily get you on an NBA floor. So,
go ahead.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So there's a lot of variables, and it changes. It depends where your team is. You talked about earlier. Do you draft on potential, or do you draft on what's known? So there's some seniors this year that had great years. You kind of know what you're going to get from them, and I'm really happy to see that because they're kind of the poster guys now for guys to stay in school that you can improve your draft stock. So, taking a guy that you know what you're getting and his ceiling may not be as high, if he's a winning player and you have a team that is, you have a hole, you're limited by your cap space, you think this guy can either start for you or, play a lot from the day he walks into training camp, sometimes there's a real value to doing that because you might have some free agents the next year that if you're not good, you may lose those free agents. So just like anything, it's strategy. And then you're a team maybe that's, rebuilding. So sure, you may have a reason you have 3 picks. You're going to take a senior. It's going to be a good culture fit. And then you're going to take 2 young guys that you think you can develop.
What about Curry?
Well, I can't talk about guys,
Right.
but
Yeah. Okay. You're right.
I think you'd have coached him well.
Yeah.
Hey, Greg, I want to ask you this, Greg, before we let you go.
I got to ask you. I got to tell him something before we go.
All right.
Go ahead.
Is there any way that you guys can tell that most of these guys coming from college to the NBA, they don't have a lot of money. And you see sometimes, these guys get in and money just overwhelms them, and it takes away from them working on their games. How do you guys kind of pick through that and say, hey, is money going to change this guy? Is money going to be a factor in his player development? Is there any way to know something like that?
Well, you know what? Actually, that's a great question because it happens. You guys read about it, and you don't know if a guy's going to remain hungry. We ask them. We talk about it in interviews. When we do our intel, our background, we'll ask that question to a variety of people. Hey, how do you think he'll be? And many times you get an honest answer. Man, I don't know. When he gets that first paycheck, all he's talked about is his car and, what he's going to do with this and how many people in his family he's going to take care of. And we know from experience that can put a lot of stress on a guy and keep him from performing. So you absolutely try to gauge that, and it's a hard one, to gauge, but it's absolutely a good question and something we try to figure out.
Well, Sprewell did well, even though he got messed up at the end, but he played hard, I thought, for everybody. So,
you bet.
Yeah. Let me tell you this before we let you go. I was at the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame the other night, and I saw Eddie Orrin.
Yes, sir.
And
told me he saw you.
Huh? Yeah.
He told me he saw you.
Yeah, I don't know that. I was laughing about calling him and calling you, but I don't know if this happened, and I guess it did. He said that I guess when you and I were together, you had told him about this, or I told him about this, that we were playing Auburn, and I wasn't getting my guys to play very well. And that when I went in the dressing room, I grabbed my guys up and told them as we ran off the court, Barkley winked at me. And like they were going to beat the dog out of us to get my
I wasn't there for Barkley. It was a little before me, but
okay, I guess it was.
You did come up, and I can't remember who it was. You did that. And then the best time is when you wrote the letter to yourself from an Auburn fan.
Yeah.
Barry, he wrote himself a letter, and I kept listening to it and sitting in the back. And then I remember, and guys had saliva coming out of their mouth. It was so good. And then I looked at you, and you kind of gave me that half smile. And I thought, dear Lord, what have we gotten to in terms of motivation for Auburn?
Yeah, is that right? Yep. To make up lies about what people said or what people is that right, Greg?
Yeah, that's right.
That's lying.
You weren't there. My years ran together. Barkley, I forgot about that winking at Barkley. You weren't there. No.
Yeah, no, I wasn't there. But I do remember that. I love the letter. That was one of my favorite moments. And all I'll say is this: is Dizzy Dean said, "Your success against Auburn, they can look it up." So, that whatever you did, it worked.
I think that letter ought to go to the Hall of Fame. Go to the Alabama Hall of Fame. Put it in your little case there, the letter.
Hey, Barry, I got to say this, too, before I get off. This was also one of my favorite things that your dad did. So when I first got there, I was 28, and he came in, and he started preseason, and he told them, he said, man, now look, he said, every game on the schedule is important as the other one, all of them. So y'all look at the schedule, and you'll see like Mississippi Southern. Well, first of all, it was Southern Miss. I thought I'd missed a school on the schedule. But anyway, he still called it Mississippi. And then, so he's going through the whole schedule and this and that. And then he said, except for Auburn. God dang it, dude, we got to beat them. And it was it was one of the funniest things going along, listening to it. Every game's important as the other. They all count as one. And then he yelled out, except for Auburn. Oh, my God. I looked over those freshmen. Melvin Cheatham, Gary Waits, their eyes were about to pop out of their head. They didn't know what to think.
Well, those guys, they took it to heart because I pretty much remember them whipping Auburn. And then every time you come back after you beat Auburn, he'd always sing country music on the bus.
Yeah, those two guys that he mentioned, Gregg Polinsky got a lot of players. He got two great ones. They got those two. I'm not going to go through the story, but I was wanting to go home when Gary Waits was going to play that afternoon. I said, Greg, I'm wore out. I'm tired. He said, stay for one more game. And I did.
That's right. We were at Morehouse College, Coach. We were at Morehouse.
Yeah.
And they were, you know, that we were playing in the summer. He goes, come on. You know how he is. Like, he, you know, when he got tired, it was like my 13-year-old daughter, right? So at that time, he's like, come on, I want to, it's enough already. Said, you got to watch this last game. You just got to watch it. So, Barry, at halftime, he looked at, you know how he is, he looked at me after about 3 possessions and said, we got to have him. So,
can we get him?
At halftime, Barry, we go out into the lobby, and back then they called it a bump. You know, it was okay. Everybody did. It was no big deal. Gary comes over and Wimp waits, and he gets down to the water fountain. It's real low, and he's slurping it. And Gary's standing behind him, and he goes, Gary, Wimp Sanderson, Alabama. We're coming to get you, son. That was it.
Yeah.
Gary, from that point, Gary loved it.
Yeah.
He loved Wimp. So, anyway.
Not only are those two guys great players, but they're great people. They've done great after basketball.
He got some great play. I'm telling you, Gregg Polinsky got them, boy. I'll tell you, know.
But these guys are a real tribute to society too. They're great.
Yeah. They are. I mean, you know, Wimp, you probably know this, but Melvin has done incredibly well. You know him. He's a Buffalo nickel. He saved every dime, invested well. Yeah. He is an entrepreneur, got a great family, living in Austin. Gary, I just spoke to the other day, and he's doing great in medical sales. He and his wife. He's got a son. Yeah. You couldn't be prouder of them. I mean, they have, boy, what two great guys. What I'd say to all that, Barry, and your dad's always very nice, I worked with a great staff. A great staff.
We had a fun time.
I was just part of it, but, man, what a good group. So, hey, Coach, thanks for having me on.
Okay, thank you for being on. That's great insight. Thanks,
Greg. Bear.
See you, buddy.
See you guys.
Thank you.